Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. We were discussing T. Parsons' theory of functionalism. This is the last part of T. Parsons' theory, which we are discussing today, and that is functionalist theory of social change. My dear students, it is usually, said that functionalism does not explain adequately how societies change, why societies evolve. And the reason for this criticism is that the basic assumption, the basic postulate of functionalism is that society remains in a state of equilibrium, and different parts of society basically coordinate with one another to create this equilibrium. So the question is that if society is in a state of equilibrium and this equilibrium is accomplished by the collective work of all the parts of society, then why societies change at all? So this is the question. T. Parsons has tried to address this question. It's up to you to see his explanation and to you can judge that is a position which can be accepted or you may criticize it. It's up to you. So T. Parsons says we know last time discussion and your reading that he says that needs of society are basically the fundamental needs are four, and we discuss adaptation, goal attainment, integration, and latency or pattern maintenance, AGIL schema we discussed last time, and why he developed that. And these are functional requirements or functional prerequisites of society. And then with each functional requirement, we have an institution or a set of institutional arrangements which answer to that need. So adaptation is basically need of society to relate with its environment and physical environment particularly, and how it survives by so how. And when we say that it's how physically survive, so it means that, and that's why perhaps sorry that T. Parsons has used the word adaptation, because the underlying assumption is that society adapts itself. So what do we mean by adapt? It means that relationship of people with the nature changes. With the passage of time, human beings are more and more able to exploit the wealth of nature, और animals हैं, plants हैं, our ways of cultivation हैं, all that comes in adaptation. So with the advent of technology, there is much change in society. Has human beings have developed new ways to relate to the nature. So he particularly has emphasized on adaptation, that what happens, first of all, theoretically, first what happens that this AGIL, whenever there is a change in any of them, and the change comes by any new thing, human beings can invent a thing, for example. So that would be a change. It changes relationships of man and nature, for example. So what would happen, that the whole equilibrium would be disturbed. So what would happen, that all the institutions would respond to this new situation in which there is a disturbance. This disturbance is caused by any new invention or discovery, or some physical event happened, some I mean temperature raised in a particular situation, icebergs, and for example, there is much flow of water in oceans or whatever, or rivers. So in the physical nature or in human world, if there is any new event which disturb that equilibrium, society or social institutions would respond to that. They would start responding to that change. Why? Because that would disturb the equilibrium. So society would move to restore its equilibrium. and in this movement it would achieve the equilibrium after some time, but it would be a new equilibrium. So for example, equilibrium 1, and then equilibrium 2, and so on, equilibrium n. So so it means that society, when we say that society remains in a state of equilibrium, it does not mean that it always, its equilibrium is constant, that it always restores the previous, no, equilibrium. It would restore equilibrium, but it would be a new equilibrium. What do we mean by a new equilibrium? We mean that a new relationship of institutions, because society has, while responding to that change, it has changed now. It is a new society now. You cannot step into the same water twice, किसी philosopher ने कहा था. So the same is true for society according to T. Parsons. So so we can say society का जो equilibrium है, the equilibrium of society is not something rigid and fixed. The thing is that society has a tendency toward equilibrium. This is a true description according to T. Parsons. Rather than saying that society remains in a state of equilibrium, we should say that society basically has always a tendency to toward an equilibrium. So, और ये जो equilibrium है, इसको हम कह सकते हैं कि moving equilibrium है, right? So so my dear students, ये है सूरत हाल according to T. Parsons society की. So if society is restoring its equilibrium, then it would change and it would be a new society. This is how gradually societies change. And he has basically said that social evolution, he accepts that societies, from simple societies to complex societies to highly complex societies have evolved through this mechanism. This is the mechanism according to T. Parsons. And this change really comes in adaptation. Whenever human beings have, more, and he basically accepts that societies evolve. Evolution is different from change, because when we say societies evolve, it means that we are judging that societies are improving, right? This society is better than the previous society from 18th century. 18th century was better than 16th century, like that. So society, we have explicitly, we are making, this is a normative statement when we say that society is evolving, right? This is not just a descriptive statement or neutral statement. So according to T. Parsons, society is evolving. And why are they evolving? Because human beings are more and more able to take control of, you can say, natural resources, and that is the material part of society. And then when society responds to that, it changes its culture. अब जब कल्चर चेंज होता है तो वहां पे सिर्फ मैं टर्म बताना चाह रहा हूँ जो टी पार्सन्स ने, मतलब जैसे टी पार्सन्स को हम समझते हैं कि he has this part of his work is developing new language of society. तो उसने एक टर्म यूज किया, उसका सिंपल सा मतलब है, लेकिन हमारा टर्म यूँ लगता है जैसे पता नहीं क्या चीज है. दैट इज पैटर्न वेरिएबल्स. पैटर्न वेरिएबल्स, it simply means cultural values at a particular time. So cultural values, for example, in feudal society are pattern variables of feudal society, and then, for example, modern society or capitalist society will say pattern variables of capitalist society. So he has particularly compared pattern variables of any pre-modern society or traditional society and pattern variables of modern society. So pattern variables A and pattern variables B. So there is a table in your handout which you will see that how things are managed and how relationship between people are different in traditional society and in modern society. So pattern variables A and pattern variables B. For example, I will give you just one example. For example, you say that status. social status in pre-modern societies or uh, traditional societies is governed by ascription. So ascription means that ascribed state. The emphasis is on ascribed status. People are born with the status, right? Ascribed status. और जबकि जो modern societies है उसमें statuses are achieved. For example, the emphasis in society is on achieved status. So this is pattern variable of status. This is how he has made that table. Pattern variables A and pattern variables B, which is basically a comparison of difference between the values of pre-modern society and modern society. So he wants to make this point that things have evolved, the whole values have evolved, and there is a change. And why that change occurred? Because there was some disturbance in that equilibrium, and society moved to restore its equilibrium, and in this process, it has evolved. I hope that please read it, and you will be clear, inshallah. Thank you very much.